Well, we are in it. And by it, I mean Magnetic Conversations is running. We are officially a full week in. We're into week 2 as of the time of recording of this. And I just wanted to tell you that what I'm watching happen inside of the group right now, it's exactly what I expected. And it's also the thing that not very many people talk about when you start doing this kind of work. And I know there are some people out there talking about it, but basically when you come into something like this, week 1, you're fired up. And that makes so much sense, right? It's new, it's exciting, there's energy in the group, people are jumping in, there's introductions happening, conversations are starting, leads are getting generated, people are posting their wins, momentum feels so easy because the novelty is there. However, week 2 is always so different. And I have seen this not only in week 2 of things like Magnetic Conversations, where we're together for about 6 weeks, but I also see this in other cohorts, other containers. So, in places like coaching cohorts where, you get into it and you kind of start to get into this groove, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, now it's kind of starting to be mundane, right? So in this instance, right, in Magnetic Conversation, week 2 is where the novelty wears off for a lot of people. And quite honestly, this happens because you've already reached out to the obvious warm leads. You've had those easy conversations, and now you're like, oh, I have to find the new ones. And following up on ones that, conversations that went quiet. You have to keep moving even when it doesn't feel like it's working yet, which is kind of a sticky place to be in because your brain is serving up thoughts like, is this working? I thought this would work faster. What if this isn't working? Are you sure you're doing this right? What if we tried something else? What if we scrolled on social media and found 27 new downloads to do? Okay, so week 2 is always where consistency gets tested, especially in shorter cohorts like Magnetic Conversations. And quite honestly, it's where most people, if they're doing this alone, this is where they quit. They quit in week 2 because the novelty is gone. It's not a new shiny thing anymore. So I want to share today what I'm watching inside of the group. And the thing I want to be really crystal clear about is nobody is quitting. And I am going to talk about why in today's episode. If it doesn't light you up, it won't sell. And that is your sign to shift things in your business. Hi, I'm your host, Maggie Olson. I'm your business mentor, your human design expert, and the creator of the Magnetic Method Designed to Convert formula. I help women entrepreneurs just like you simplify their strategy, align their sales with their energy, and finally build a business that feels like freedom, not like pressure. After nearly 2 decades in entrepreneurship, I have learned that success isn't actually about doing more. It's about aligning with what already works for you, tapping into your natural energy. And here on the Chaos to Clarity podcast, we're going to blend human design with practical business strategy to help you attract clients naturally, sell with confidence, and grow with ease. So if you're ready to design a business that lights you up, converts with clarity, and learn more about working with me inside of the Magnetic Method mentorship and all of my other programs, you're going to find the link to all of that in the show notes, and you're going to find all of that information here on the podcast. So let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. Hello and welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. My name is Maggie. I'm your host and your business mentor. And today we're going to talk all about magnetic conversations and what it's like being in there in week 2. So if you're new here, if this is the first time you're listening in, I run a 45-day coaching program called Magnetic Conversations, and it's where I take coaches, consultants, service providers through the full journey from lead generation to closing a client. So right now we're in week 2 of the June cohort, and today I'm going to share what's actually happening inside. Now, I'm doing this because whether you're in the group or not, what I'm going to share is going to apply to your business. And it's really fascinating to me. And it's happened to me too, right? Don't think that I'm immune from this. So today we're talking all about consistency, and more specifically, we're going to talk about why consistency breaks down, why discipline is not really the answer that you're looking for, and what can actually like make this stick. Like, how can you keep showing up without getting really annoyed that it either feels like it's not working or you're sick and tired of downloading all the freebies. Now, what I want to say, if you're listening to this and it is before mid-July 2026, right now the June cohort for June 2026 is closed. So the doors are shut, but the free Telegram group is open. So if you want to join that, which I highly suggest you should, because that is where I'm going to announce the doors opening for a pre-sale for the August cohort. So the link for the free Telegram group is in the show notes below. Okay. So I would love for you to go and hop into the free Telegram group. If you're in my free Facebook group, that is transitioning onto Telegram. So that is going to be a space where I will be in there. It's community. It's everybody's vibing in there. It's just such a fun space to be in. So anyway, go join the free Telegram group. That is down below. The link for that is down below. So let's talk a little bit. I want to dismantle something that I think has kind of caused a lot of unnecessary shame in the industry. And it's something that, I mean, obviously I've been in business for nearly 20 years. Okay. 2027 will mark my 20th year in business. And I mean, really, we could go back to when I was 12 and I had a babysitting business. So, I've been doing this a long time. Okay. And I just want to say that from the time when I started babysitting or selling little trinkets to, like fund my horse riding habits, it's always been about consistency, right? And consistency is not a discipline problem, even though I know people think it is, because they will tell me, I just need to be more disciplined. I just need to get more consistent. And I know that's what you've been told, right? That's like the definition of hustle, is to be consistent, to have good discipline. But something I don't think that we kind of take into consideration is that, yes, you've been told that if you were just more committed or more driven or more motivated, or you show up every day, you do the outreach, you follow up, you keep going, even when it felt like nothing was happening. But when you don't, then, you miss a day, you fall off, whatever, you start something strong and you slowly fade out, then you're telling yourself you're the problem. And in this whole thing, okay, right, what you've been told, right, that we're looking at as the lie is that you're the problem. And yes, you have to be involved in order to show up consistently. Okay, so there's a couple sides to this coin. The reason why I think it's not a discipline problem is that you don't have to show up every single day. Does it help? Yes, it does. Especially if we're thinking in context of posting, right? Because when you post on social media, especially on things like Instagram or Facebook, platforms that are pretty quick moving, right? Like X or Twitter or whatever, Blue Sky, those quicker moving platforms, right? When you don't post consistently, like every day, it's less of a chance for you to get seen. Now, I say that with a big, huge asterisk behind it, because half of the way you get seen is by commenting and connecting with other people to make social media social. Okay, so what winds up happening a lot, and this is where I see a lot of people getting really hard on themselves, is that they're like, yep, I'm going to show up 27 times a day, and I'm going to have 37 new messages, and I'm going to follow up with 65 people, and I'm going to do all this stuff. And it winds up being too much. It's too much to handle every single day. It's too much energy that you're putting out every single day. So by the end of week 1, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. How am I ever going to keep up this amount of work when I also have to balance client work when I start bringing people in? This is why I teach 20 leads in 2 weeks and the magnetic conversation. This is why I teach it the way I do. Okay. And inside of magnetic conversations, I teach 20 leads to 2 weeks, which is the framework for continually generating and bringing people through your client journey, leading people from cold to sold in your client ecosystem, so that when you miss a day, or when you fall off, or when you don't want to show up because whatever, it's not going to be that big of a deal in the long run. Okay, so inside of 20 leads in 2 weeks, which again, that's inside of magnetic conversations, is what I teach. 20 leads to 2 weeks teaches you how to effectively have, I'm going to say 2 to 4 conversations every single day. Now that is manageable. Why? Because you are going in loving your offer. You're going in knowing your client journey. You're going in knowing what questions you want to ask in conversation, so that you can qualify people before you get them on a call, before you even begin to answer and ask more like detailed questions. You're asking questions that are leading that person into whether or not they are or are not a good fit. And that's okay. That's by design. Now, consistency, again, tends to break down when there isn't a structure to hold you, which is why 20 leads in 2 weeks is so important. Okay. So when every day you have to make a fresh decision about what to do, how to do it, whether it's the right move, whether you're doing it right, that decision fatigue alone is going to just wear you out before you ever do the actual work. And something that I want to add in here is that when people are creating their own business, they are like, okay, I can take on 27 clients a week. I have all of this time. What most people aren't taking into consideration here is the overhead time. And this is something that I see nobody talking about. I've never seen anyone aside from myself talk about, some of the math behind bringing in one client. Like, how many hours does one client equate to? Because most people don't know. Now, I've spent 20 years owning a yoga studio and a photography brand and a coaching and mentoring brand. So between those 3 businesses, they are very client forward, right? I am the service giver, right, to these people. So there's homework for me in between clients. Now, that means I need to factor in, especially to how much I'm charging, I need to factor in how much time that is. And what do I mean by that time? I mean, how much time do you spend emails? Sending emails, sending messages? How much time do you spend with Claude or ChatGPT creating the content calendar? Posting the content calendar, creating the Canva graphics, right? Thinking of the next thing to do, looking at your schedule, getting on coffee chats, all of those free things, all of those add up. And most people don't take that into consideration. So they're busy creating. And then they're like, but I don't have any clients because they don't have space for it. So something that I want to bring this back to consistency. Okay. So what makes consistency possible is removing those decisions that I talked about, right? Like what to do, how to do it, whether it's the right move, whether the offer is right, whether you're doing it right or wrong or indifferent. That decision fatigue. And as women, if you're a woman listening to this, you know the decision fatigue, especially if you have a family, if you have kids, right? Decision fatigue alone. Ask any woman what is for dinner, and she might punch you in the face. And I say that with love and kindness, but also if you can remove some of that decision fatigue so you're not constantly focused on, oh my gosh, what do I have to do next? What do I do now? What do I do now? It's going to get easier, right? It makes consistency more possible when you remove those decisions. Now, to come back to the math for just a second, if you think about this, for every one client hour, there is usually 1 to 3 hours of overhead. Now, I will say when you're in bringing on clients like 1, 2, 3, probably up to 5, you're probably in that 2 to 3 hours of overhead. So for 5 clients, you have 2 hours of overhead for each of those clients. Okay, so that's 5 hours plus another 10 hours of overtime. So that's 15 hours of work right there with 5 clients. Maybe even you could probably honestly also bump it up to 3. Just because within those first 5 clients, you're really kind of figuring out like, okay, what's the rhythm here? So if you have 5 client hours, you then have 15 overhead hours per week. That's 20 hours. That's half of your work week already, just with 5 clients. Now, how do you fix that? Okay, that's something that as we get into things in the magnetic conversations, that is something that I go into inside of there. And I do that intentionally because you have to figure out what consistency looks like for you. And you also have to figure out the math. How many people do I need to be talking to every month? How many calls do I need to get on in order to sell the things that I want to sell? What do I need to do in order to meet the goals that I want? Because yes, you can manifest all day long. You can think the good thoughts. You still have to put in the action though. That's something that people also forget. Now, as far as what magnetic conversations does, like I said, it helps you figure out where your discipline, where your consistency is, and where you want it to be. Okay. I'm not asking you to be more disciplined. What I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to remove the decisions so that you can just do the work, so that you know what you're doing. If you think about being in corporate, you have a job description. Well, when you're an entrepreneur, that gets taken away because you wear all the hats. So if you're not, right, like if you have, and I'm not saying create an SOP, but it can be helpful, right? When you're like, oh, I don't even have to think about that. I have an SOP for that, or I know what I need to do in order to do these things. Okay. So again, you're removing some of the decisions so that you don't have the fatigue. So you're not showing up exhausted. Okay, so let's talk about what it kind of looks like inside of magnetic conversations at the beginning of week 2. So week 1, again, was all about identifying your warm leads and starting conversations back up with those warm leads. Okay, so people came in and they did exactly that, right? I had people go through their DMs. They looked at their comment section. They looked at their Facebook friends. They looked at their past clients, and they started finding the leads that were already there. Now, as a side note, you probably have more leads, more warm leads than you realize, which is why this works so well. So I've seen people generate conversations with the people that they've been loosely connected to for months and just never intentionally reached out or never intentionally situated the conversation in a way that put themselves into a leadership position in that conversation. Now, one woman went live in her Facebook group and she just was doing something that she genuinely loved. She was sharing her information. She was able to connect with a few people in that group, and you know what? By the end of the day, after giving that Facebook Live, she had someone asking about her services. So she didn't overthink it. It literally happened naturally because she was showing up with integrity, with conviction, doing what she loves, genuinely sharing excitement. And people can feel that. Your energy can feel that. And people in her group reached out to her and said, oh my gosh, I would love to get in on what you're doing. Okay. Again, she showed up, she started the conversation, and she allowed it to happen. She stayed open. Now, another woman just closed her first client in over a year. I could not be more proud of what happened, right? And it all from a conversation that was already there, just unworked. This was something where she followed up with someone that she had been connected to for, I think she said about 6 months, right? She knew the structure of what she wanted to say, and she got a yes. And, like, those are the kind of things that are available for you when you step into something that allows you to see what comes next, where you're not in fatigue from decision making. So in week 2, they're doing 2 things inside the group. They're following up on conversations from week 1 that haven't converted yet, and they're continuing to generate new conversations to keep the pipeline moving. Now, this is important. And I'm not saying, when I say they're following up, I don't mean they're following up and being like, do you want to buy? Do you want to buy? Do you want to buy? No, that's not what I mean at all. Right? When they are following up, they're following up with people who've shown genuine interest, who've said, yeah, I'm interested in that thing. Okay, I'm going to follow up with Susie because she said she was interested. So I'm going to go into Susie's DM and I'm going to say, hey, Susie, I know you said last week that you were interested in, this thing that I have going on. Would it be valuable for us to hop on a call and talk about it, right? In this case, you are the leader. You have to step into leadership. And that's something that when I work with women, I see them, they like don't want to step into that leadership position. They're timid to do it because they think it looks bro markety. Now, I'm not saying go and spam and saying, do you want to buy? Do you want to buy? Do you want to buy? That's not it. I'm saying you have to understand what is the genuine invitation that makes you lit up to go into those DMs and be like, oh my gosh, Sally, I have this great thing. I thought of you. We had this conversation the other day. You were talking about X, Y, and Z. I have this thing that supports ABC. Does that feel like something that would be aligned with you? Right? You have to be excited in order for the other person to be like, oh, I do need that thing. Okay. So here's something that, another thing that I don't see a lot of people talking about when it comes to follow-up. Okay. And especially in something like magnetic conversations, it's the work that you put in week 2 that is the least glamorous, but it often does the most. Now, remember, the fortune is in the follow-up. Okay. Following up is where the sale usually happens for most people. It's not usually in that first DM or in that initial connection. That's like the meet cute where you're meeting each other, you're doing a little vibe check, you're like vetting each other to see like, okay, does this feel good? Okay. It's not in the first conversation. It's usually in the second, third, fourth touch point. You have to give people some time to warm up to you. Now, to take this a step deeper, when your content is also bingeable, that does help. It makes it easier for people to have the conversation and then you start showing up more in their feed. And then they're like, oh, wow, she really does know exactly what she's talking about. Okay. When you can follow up with something like, hey, I was thinking about what you said on our discovery call. I was thinking about what you said the other day. I was thinking about what you said when you replied to my post in that Facebook group. Okay. It's I just wanted to share this with you. That is what really makes other people be like, oh, dang, well, she really was listening. Holy cow. Okay. Yeah, I'm in it. Right. So the people in the magnetic conversations, that's what these women are working on right now. And it's working because they're not doing it alone. So something else that really helps consistency is being able to do these things together, right? To be able to have somewhere to check in, to be like, I didn't do this thing today, right? But tomorrow I'm going to. Or I didn't do exactly the thing I wanted in the morning, but I did get it in the afternoon. That's also why when I created 20 leads in 2 weeks, again, that's the framework inside Magnetic Conversations. 20 leads in 2 weeks is a 20-minute daily sit that you can do. You set a timer for 20 minutes. You go and you post, you go and you genuinely comment, and then you go and you have two types of conversations. The first type is following up with 3 people. Okay. You start it with following up because then you're not like, oh my gosh, I have to start a new conversation, right? You're following up with people because that's often the easier thing to do. So follow up, and then you're starting 1 to 3 new conversations with people who have commented, or who maybe you have a message request, or maybe they've sent you a Facebook. Maybe they've followed you on Facebook or Instagram, and you say, hey, Susie, thanks so much for following me here. I'm so excited. Is there anything in particular that stood out about my content for why you chose to follow me? Okay, so that's it. That's the 20-minute. That's what you do. You set a timer and you do that for 20 minutes. Now, you can do that multiple times, right? Multiple 20-minute sits. But when you do that once, at least once per day, that takes some of that overhead time that I was talking about in the beginning of the episode, and it starts to shrink that time. So instead of spending 3, 4, 5 hours per client hour, now you're spending 1, 2, 3 hours, right? You're maximizing your time so that you have more time freedom. You have more ability to bring more people in. You have more ability to go and do whatever it is you want to do. So now, whether or not you're in Magnetic Conversations, this is what I would love for you to take away today. Okay. Throughout the episode, I've talked about consistency, but there are 3 things that are going to make consistency really stick for you. And I don't want you to think about this in terms of willpower, motivation, things like that, right? Okay. I want you to think about it as a defined daily action. This is the first thing, right? So when you have a defined daily action, it's not like a goal where your goal is, I want to close X amount of clients in a month. Yes, it's handy to do that, but it's also breaking it down to be even simpler. Okay. So if your goal is to close, we'll say 1 client this month. Okay. So that means you need 100 cool or cold conversations, which I know, pick your jaw up off the floor. It sounds like a lot. But if you think about it in this way, if you start 3 new conversations and you follow up with 3 existing conversations, okay, at the end of 30 days, that's 90 new connections and 90 people who are in various stages of cold to sold for you. Okay. And if you have a 10% closing rate, right? So out of 100 people, you need 10 people to hop on a sales call. Out of those 10 people, 1 person is going to buy, right? That's 10%. So instead of, I want to close however many clients this month, an action that you can say is, I'm going to start or continue at least 3 conversations every day. Because 3 conversations, like I said, that'll take you less than 20 minutes if you're in there having these conversations, right? Goals are sometimes too big to act on in the morning when you open your phone, but an action is not, right? You have an action to do. You're doing something. Okay, so give yourself one specific thing to do every single day to help take the decision out of it. You wake up, the first thing you do, you sit down at your computer. Okay, it's time for me to send 3 messages. I'm going to pick 3 people. And you can't tell me that you don't have at least 3 people who already have a conversation going with you in your Facebook Messenger. I don't believe it because I have so many in there, right? Now, number 1, daily action. Define your daily action. Number 2, track it. For the love of all things holy. Track who you're talking to. I cannot. When I was creating the notes for this episode, it was a tie between action first or track it first. And action came first because you need to act before you can write it down. So that was why this is second, but tracking it is easily like one and neck with that daily action. Now, when I say track it, I don't mean a complicated CRM. Now, I love a CRM. I love Go High Level. I work with a number of different agencies. I have Go High Level clients who I do support work for. I love a funnel. Don't get me wrong. I love tech. But here's the thing. When tech is overwhelming, you're not going to use it. So start simple. Okay. Everyone who's inside of Magnetic Conversations gets access to the spreadsheet tracker that I created. Okay. So, and it's nothing. I mean, there's a lot to it, but it's not overwhelming, right? It's a place. It basically is your hub. It's your business hub. Now, I know so many people, so many 6-figure entrepreneurs who their first 6 figures they did with a Google Doc, right? A Google Doc and a spreadsheet. So what this tracker is, it's a place where you have a column that has name, information that you talked about. Are they an ideal client? When did you last follow up with them? Right? The point of this is that you can see at any moment who you're talking to, where the conversation stands, what needs to be done for follow-up, who needs to be followed up with. And, when it's all in your head, things are going to fall through the cracks. But more importantly, and I would say easily more importantly, is that when you write it down, whether that is pen and paper, whether that is a spreadsheet, it gives your brain something concrete, right? You can see that it's working so that when you get into things like week 2, where it's like, oh man, I don't know, is this actually working? You can go to the spreadsheet and be like, oh wow, holy crap, it totally is working, right? And that gives your brain positive feedback so that you can say, brain, you're wrong. So all of those thoughts that you're just kindly dropping in right now saying, I don't know, maybe we should change. Do you think this is really worth it? I don't really think so. I don't know. So-and-so is beating you, blah, 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 right? Whatever your brain is serving up, you can then prove it wrong. You can prove those thoughts wrong by saying, actually, no, I have 47 new leads in 1 week. Holy crap, that was so easy. Okay. So when it's written down somewhere, it exists outside of you and it becomes easier to manage at the end of the day. Now, the third thing here is having someone to report to. And I don't mean this like having a boss type thing. I mean this in terms of accountability. Okay. I have a couple of accountability partners who once a week I will write down, here's what I'm working on, here's what I actually did, and here's where I want to improve, right? And it just gives me a baseline to see what are the things that I'm saying I'm going to work on versus what are the things that are getting done and why am I not doing, what are the things I'm not doing and why am I not doing that? Is that something I could hire out? Is that something that, I'm just being afraid of and not wanting to show up and do? Cough cough accountability, or cough cough accounting rather, because that is definitely something that if you're not able to see that, you're not going to do it. Okay. And it's about having a reason to show up that's bigger than just yourself. So like with magnetic conversations, with this Telegram group, when you're in a group and other people are posting their wins and doing the work alongside of you, it creates a pull that no amount of personal motivation can really replace for you. So when you build with these 3 things in your practice, and it just gives you a place for consistency to stop being a struggle for you, right? It becomes a design, it becomes a framework, it becomes just something that you can do. It's a practice, right? It's like riding a bike. Oh, I have to do this, this, and this. Now, if you want all 3 built in for you, this is what we do inside of magnetic conversations. So if you're like, oh, I absolutely need to be in that next cohort. The next cohort will start August 1. Again, you're going to want to go to the link down below. You're going to want to join the free Telegram group. That's where I'm going to be putting all of the information for the next cohort. Now, here's what I know after watching people do this work inside of this container that I've built. It's not the most talented people getting the results, right? It's not the people with the biggest audiences or, quite honestly, the best content or the most polished brand. In fact, sometimes the bigger the audience, the more challenging it actually is for that person, because there's usually a lot more moving pieces then. But what I do know for certain is that the people who show up, who follow the structure, who do the unglamorous follow-up work in week 2 and week 3, and they continue to show up even when the novelty has worn off, and trust that they are putting in the reps, those are the people who build something. Those are the people who get the most out of this. Those are the people who trust the process, who essentially trust in themselves to keep showing up even when it feels really hard. And that is what the group is there for. It's there for the days where it feels really hard and you're like, man, I'm feeling it today. And the group is there to help lift you up. So when we think about consistency, consistency isn't a character trait that you either have or you don't. It's something you design your way into, which is why, that's also why I do bring in elements of human design into my cohorts, right? And I don't lead with human design because I don't necessarily want that in the forefront, but it is really handy to understand what is my design type, what is my energy level, because when you know your design type and you know kind of the energy level that you're wanting to go for, if your energy level isn't there, there's something that's misaligned, whether that's your offer, your messaging, whatever. And that's how you can start to fix that and fix it quickly. So you're designing the environment, because by designing the environment, you're doing the work is like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. I can't wait. I'm going to show up and blah, 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 right? Like it becomes so much easier to do the work. And then the results follow because it feels easy. So it's easy to show up. So you're excited about it. And people can feel that genuine excitement so much more than, if you're using Claude or ChatGPT to design a 3-month calendar for you, right? A content calendar. So, like I said, Magnetic Conversations for the June cohort is closed. But if you want to get into the August cohort, so August 2026, the waitlist is open. You're going to want to go and join the free Telegram group that I have right now. That's where I'm going to be dropping all of the information for the August cohort. And don't worry, I'll also drop it here on the podcast. But for right now, I want you to go and join the August cohort, because that is also where you're going to start developing this consistency. You're going to be in there with other people who are doing the work. So all the links are down below. Get in the free Telegram group, get on the wait list. Again, that's where I'm going to announce when the doors are open. You're going to get a pre-sale price if you're in that free Telegram group. So that's a wrap for this week. If this resonated, I would love for you to share it. Share it with a friend who needs to hear this. And if you could, please leave a review if you're feeling very generous. So reviews are what helps get this out into the world. And I hope this genuinely helps more people, right? Like, I want this to reach the masses because consistency and showing up for your business and doing the work and putting in these reps is really what is going to build you a solid foundation. So next week, I'm going to be talking about how to invite someone to a call without sounding like a used car salesman. And it's one of my favorite topics. And I think you're going to get a lot out of it. So I hope to hear from you next week. Again, if you have any feedback, if you have any questions, go and join that free Telegram group. Get in that group and ask me all the questions. That's where I'm in answering questions, as well as the Magnetic Conversations group. But that free Telegram group is a great way for you to connect with people, to also just be able to be, in my world in a space that is not Instagram or Facebook. So go ahead and join that. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next episode.